Greetings all, I'm the ForeverDM and this is Flashbacks, a show where we take a walk down memory lane and revisit some of my favorite moments from past campaigns. Allow me to regale you with the tale of Bill Gates, the priest of evil chaos. Once upon a time, I was just a wee lad of 19 years old, and I had gotten my first job working for a place called Gameskeeper in the Stone Ridge Mall in Dublin, Pleasanton, California. Gameskeeper was a subsidiary of Wizards of the Coast. 3.0, not 3.5, 3.0 had just come out. And I was extremely excited about it because my friends and I had all been playing 2nd edition for a really long time, and we were all very disappointed that skills and powers had effectively ruined the game because half of our friend group wanted to use it in order to make overpowered, invincible characters that were stupidly crazy, and the other half of us wanted to not use the books. So 3.0 was becoming our bread and butter because working at a WotC subsidiary, I mean, shit. We were excited. Wizards of the Coast had done such a great job with Magic the Gathering. The Magic the Gathering community was booming. They had just bought D&D from TSR and come out with the 3.0, and 3.0 looked really good. But despite all of that, thanks to me, all of my friends had a love for OD&D because it's fucking awesome. I got the job because I had a childhood friend who had what were called bashes at his house. Twice a year, there was a massive, 70-person party at his house. I had met a guy who was there whose name was Psycho. He's not as scary as he sounds, but he's also as scary as he sounds. He was a really big Egyptian dude with giant dreadlocks, and he was one of the coolest bros that I had met in a long time. He was always really disappointed when he met new people because they had a tendency to be afraid of him because he was a massive dude. He was like 6'4", built like a brick shit house, but he loved Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and board games. And he worked at Stone Ridge Mall selling board games because it was his passion. And so he got me my first job. And when I went there, I met Craig. Craig was your stereotypical board game nerd. He was balding, he was chubby, he was short. The guy was like 5'4", and he was like in his late 30s. And was already, mostly smooth back. Hats off to him for being such a fucking Chad, because he was awesome. This was my first boss that I had ever had, and he ruined every other job I had in my life, because he was based as fuck. Craig was awesome because he had told us on no uncertain terms that we had to present the professional face to every customer that came in, and he was adamant about that. As long as there was a customer there. If there was not a customer present, or if no customer would see it, he did not give a flying fuck. We had an all hands on deck meeting. There were like 5 of us, so not a lot of hands. He said, all right, so one of you is going to be swapping shifts. You're going to be working from midday into evening. And I was like, okay, that's the busiest time of day. That kind of sucks. Nobody wants that shift. And he said, but you will not have the same duties as everyone else. You can ring people up and stuff like that when you have the opportunity, but other than that, for most of the day, you're not going to be doing your normal job. And I was like, well, what are we going to be doing? And then he pulled out the vest. It was a Pokemon gym leader vest with the giant-ass Pokeball on the back, big blue vest, and he said, one of you is becoming our gym leader. And our job was to role play as a Pokemon gym leader the entire time that we were there. While kids were coming in and playing Pokemon. Everybody did not want any part of this at all. And I immediately stepped up and raised my hand. I was like, I will do it. That sounds hilarious. And sure enough, it was actually really freaking cool. I got to spend 6 hours of my 8-hour shift just playing Pokemon with the kids that showed up and watching over them while they played Pokemon and giving them little stamps on they had a little book. And so when they played a game, if they won a game, they got 30 points. If they lost a game, they got 10 points. They got rewards for it. And even better, I was encouraged by their manual to come up with a personality for my gym leader that was family friendly, to come up with my own deck, and I could make a rule which was called my Coliseum rule and change the rules of the game for only when kids were playing with me. what happened was after they got a certain number of points, they could challenge the gym leader. And if they beat the gym leader, they actually got a real pin, which I thought was awesome. So the general rule was that, like in Magic the Gathering, you can only have 4 of a certain card, right? For those of you who know Magic. The rule in Pokemon was that you could only have 4 of a card with the same name. So even if you had different editions of a card, you could only have 4 Charmanders, because there were a bunch of different kinds of Charmanders. My rule was I took that out. You could only have 4 of a specific card. So I made my entire deck out of just Eevees and the Eeveelutions. So I had 4 of the Eevees from the base game. I had 4 Japanese Eevees. I had 4 Eevees from the Team Rocket set. And so I was the evil Eevee gym leader. My Eevees were all trained to be thieves in the dark of the night. So Craig loved it. I don't know how I got along so well with this guy. I was a 19-year-old snot-nosed kid at my first fucking job, and we had the most amazingly fun times together. I would show up 5 hours early for my shift, and I would hang out with Psycho and play a solo D&D game with him while I waited for my shift to start. And then I would play Pokemon for 6 out of the 8 hours. And then I would stay with Craig and Psycho to close. Then I introduced everybody to OD&D because all my friends were raving about it, and Psycho was like, oh, this sounds really cool. This is metal, is what they would say back then. Back in my day. And Craig was jealous. Craig was jealous as hell that he couldn't play. So, one day, when I was planning what was going on with the campaign, he leaned over my shoulder and was asking me about what I was doing. And I had one of the rollout battle maps, the tan ones with all the squares, and I was drawing the Caves of Chaos so that I would have the map ready, and I would just place pieces of paper over it and reveal it slowly as we moved their characters around on it, as we moved their Lego figurines. And so I was telling him about the Caves of Evil Chaos, and he was asking me well, who's the boss of this area? And I'm like, oh, well, that would be the evil priest. Nobody's ever actually made it to him. I've run this module 3 times, and they always end up bitching out. They either want to go somewhere else because it's too hard, or they get wiped out, or, And he's like, okay. You think this party's going to make it there? And I'm like, yeah, I think they got a good chance. They got Bob, who was the badass warrior. I also had my friend James, who was playing a Dwarven Pathfinder. There was a RTS game that we had played at one point, which was really cool. And it had in it a unit that were called Dwarven Pathfinders. And in this fantasy world where you were fighting off all the evil monsters, the dwarves were the only ones who had dynamite. So he wanted his character to be like that. And so he made this dwarf who had the ability to make explosives. We also had Psycho, sword and shield fighter, because that's badass. Rob was playing Malphist, the Magnificent, their wizard, because part of Malphist's original story was that when he was an apprentice, he had actually cast a spell, and he had split himself, accidentally, into 2 creatures, Malphist and Siflum, which is Malphist backwards. Malphist was a noble magic user who wanted to use knowledge for good, and Siflum was a no-good piece of shit. And they were jockeying for position, each trying to gain more power than the other, so they could wipe out the other and absorb their power. So anyway, this group of adventurers was doing pretty solid. They had fought the gnolls, come out on top. They'd fought the orcs, one of the groups of orcs, come out on top. Things were going pretty good. But Craig had a plan. He said, all right, so I can't play D&D with you guys because I've got all this manager shit that I got to do. But what if I can kind of play with you guys remotely? You and I can decide on stuff that my character does, and then we can go from there. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a really cool idea. Almost like a solo game. Yeah, I run those. Those are pretty fun. You could do all kinds of crazy shit in a solo game. Well, he said, I want my character to be the evil priest. I'm the manager here. I'm the supervisor of the store. So it would be really cool if I play the bad guy, and then when the adventurers overcome me, if they can, They get to like fight the manager. And I was like, okay, that's really fucking cool, dude. That is amazing. Like, where do you come up with this? He's like, I'll tell you what, we'll go really hardcore with it. I'll set up like I want to set up like extra traps. I want to equip my zombie and skeleton minions, and I'm gonna train my acolytes, and I'm gonna do all this stuff here. And if they beat me, I can actually give out vacation days. I'll give a vacation day to everybody if you guys manage to beat me in the Caves of Chaos. And I was like, dude, that's fucking great. You got like you're stacking the deck because I could use an extra vacation day. And he was like, haha, you don't get vacation yet. You got to be with the company at least 6 months. It's like, fuck. So he started playing games with me, and he started scheduling me on the days when I wasn't running the Pokemon Gym League to close with him. And we would just sit down and go over the maps, and he would try and like make contact with the other tribes in the Caves of Chaos and get, like trade with them for some of their items, give them some of his stuff, money or weapons. And then he would like actually go into town in disguise and would, try to seduce away some of the like blacksmiths to come back and supply him with arms or work for him. And he named his character Bill Gates because, and I quote, if I am ever going to make someone be the root of all evil, it is Bill Gates. And that has rung true to this day. So they entered the Shrine of Evil Chaos, and they started heading down the hallway. And lo and behold, they ended up fighting a bunch of zombies. Well, Craig was working on the till while he was watching them go through. And he was like coming over every once in a while and being like, hey, do I know they're there? Hey, are they going to run into me? And so I was like, oh, it would actually be really cool if they did. And so I made the decision that he would show up because Craig wanted to grandstand a little bit. They started getting into a fight with the zombies. And then in the book, every round, every turn, technically, you roll to see if the patrol is going to come by. And at the beginning of the combat, I had rolled, and the patrol was going to come by, which meant that they were going to get sandwiched from the other side. Another group of zombies came down from the north while they were fighting zombies down here in the south. It got ugly. And when things started going south, they pushed forward. They threw one of the things of dynamite and blew up a bunch of zombies. And I was like, that's the perfect time. And so the evil priest himself shows up with a group of zombies at the back. And so Craig looks up from where he's standing at the till, like 10 feet away from us, and is like, what are you doing in my shrine? Be gone, or I will destroy you with the power of evil chaos. And everybody's like looking at him like, what the fuck? He's like, I am the great Bill Gates, and you will kneel before me. And of course, they decide they're not going to take him seriously. Like, fuck this guy. So one of them goes to shoot him, hits his armor. He's a cleric. He's got plate mail, bro. And Bill Gates is like, very well, you have chosen destruction. And he casts a spell. He casts Hold Person on Bob, who is charging at him. And Bob fails his saving throw and was paralyzed. And then he sends his zombies forward, and the zombies start charging in. They're whacking people, and people are like, we're too low on hit points. We're only 3rd level. This is actually getting really ugly. We gotta bail, or we're gonna die. And so everybody makes the decision to pull back, but Bob is still paralyzed. They can't drag a giant plate mail warrior out through an army of zombies. So they make the decision to leave Bob behind, to the tender mercies of Bill Gates. Craig decided that he was not going to just kill Bob. He thought about it. He talked about pulling out a ritual dagger and slitting his throat to the glory of evil chaos. But then he had another idea. A much more wicked idea. He wasn't going to just kill him. He was going to make an example of him. So, in a move that shocked all of us, he walked over to the table and described to us in frightening detail how he circled the warrior, unclasping his breastplate, ripping his shirt from his chest, his zombies lurking nearby. What to do with a foolhardy human like you, he mused. The sound of metal dragging against stone drew closer as he carried on. All my servants bear the same mark, and you seem like no coward. Bob raged. I'll never stop chasing you. I'll kill you if it's the last thing I do. Bill Gates laughed. I know, you simple-minded fool. You'll come running back to me, and when you do, you'll join me as just another thrall. I'll even make it official here and now. You'll be one of us. Soon enough, anyway. The metal grinding against stone came to a halt. A shambling zombie had brought a long iron rod with a heavy, intricate symbol on the end. The same symbol on Bill Gates's robes. A symbol of great evil. Bob couldn't move. He wouldn't be able to move for 40 minutes. Magic the back in the day was no fucking joke. So he raised the brand, and no matter how much Bob screamed, threatened, or cried, there was nothing he could do. He'd been branded, like cattle, with a mark of evil, a mark of servitude. He could have done much worse. He wasn't magically controlled or anything, but he hit Bob where it hurt most. Not in the stats, not in the flesh, in his personal pride. Then he had his zombies collect the shaking warrior, smelling of burnt flesh, and toss him outside in the grass. The party collected him, and they got the fuck out of there. No easy rests in OD&D. They needed days. So, Bob and I stepped aside, and I was like, look, I can see that this is like really has you messed up. And it shook him. But he didn't balk at what had happened. Because to Bob, he had taken himself and he had put himself into this character. That's why he named the character Bob. He was one of those people who want to play myself in a fantasy world, killing shit with my big ass sword. And that's why it hit him so hard, because he was really not okay with what just happened. But he was okay with the fact that it had happened in a fantasy setting. It wasn't like it had happened to him, but he was so closely connected with his character that he was livid. He didn't want to leave the game. He didn't want to quit. He didn't want to go home. I told him, like, hey, we can call it here. We can... No, he wanted to keep going because Bob was going to get his fucking revenge. So they went back to the town. They spent some time building themselves back up, spent a bunch of their money getting him new armor, new weapon, some training. Let's go. And they came back in force. And when they came back, holy shit, did hellfire descend upon the Shrine of Evil Chaos. They marched in there with guards that they had almost press ganged into service. Because they were like, this is the evil thing that this guy has done. Like, some of them did the, like, hardcore, old school, like, if you're not with us, you're against us. And grabbed guards from the town. And they were like, we're going to deal with this problem. And... yeah, some good charisma rolls and some good role playing. And they marched out there with a militia to get revenge. And when they fought in the Temple of Evil Chaos against the 20 zombies and 20 skeletons that had upgraded armor, they had losses on both sides. But Bob was going to get his vengeance. And everybody in the party was in support of this. And they finally crossed paths. The snake staff met two-handed sword. Bob got coiled up by the snake staff and paralyzed, and one of the guys cut the snake staff, destroying it to free Bob, and Bob cleaved into Bill Gates, and Bill Gates cast his fateful spell on Bob, and it did nothing. He was like, what? Bob had gone out of his way to make a deal with a lich that was in the caves of the unknown nearby, and had offered him a star stone, a powerful magical gemstone, in return for an amulet that would make him immune to paralysis. And Bill Gates goes, oh no. And Bob goes, oh yeah. And Bob wails into him with his two-handed sword, and Bill Gates is at like 4 hit points. He's like, this is the end. And Bob is like, yes, this is the end. For I will not have mercy like you had for me. This is death. And Bill Gates looks at him and says, the only death is the death of your vengeance. And drinks his potion of gaseous form. And he turns into a gas cloud and floats away. And the party's like, no, get him. And so they wipe out all the skeletons and zombies, but Bill Gates gets away through his secret exit and escapes. And so I thought the module was over. They had still not done all of the other caves. Like, they had skipped a few of them, so they didn't completely clear it out. But that didn't matter anymore, because though I thought the module was over and I was going to call it the end of that adventure, nobody wanted to quit. Bill Gates had decided that what he was going to do is he needed to go find stronger minions to deal with these adventurers that were stopping his cunning plans to sacrifice a city to his dark goddess of evil chaos. And the party decided that they no longer cared about clearing out the Caves of Chaos because they had found a greater evil that needed to be stopped. They had to find and stop Bill Gates. And so the hunt for Bill Gates began. I pulled out my next module, and it was the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief. That's what it was. G1. It was designed for characters levels 8 to 12. They had only made it to 5, but I was pretty sure that by the time they got to the Steading, chasing down Bill Gates, they were probably going to be up there. And sure enough, I was right. They went ham hunting this guy down, and they followed him over hill and over dale. They hounded him everywhere that he went. He went to the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, and he was in the midst of talking with the Hill Giants and raising some of their giants as undead servants, and wiping out a nearby hamlet to fuel his undead army. And here comes the band of adventurers. Oh my god, there they are again. And they charge into the Steading of the Hill Giant Chief, and they're fighting, and they throw open the doors into the chief's hall, and there's Bill Gates standing next to the Hill Giant Chief. And Bob just goes, "You!" and points his two-handed sword at him. And Bill Gates goes, "You!" and he pulls out his wand of web. And it was a battle for the ages. The party is throwing explosives, casting fireballs, fighting the giants. It's all going down. And in the center is Bill Gates with his magic and Bob the Brave with his sword. And they duked it out there. And you know what? They got Bill Gates on the ropes. They killed the Hill Giant Chief. And boom, Bill Gates has another way out. He pulls out a small cube, throws it on the ground, and jumps through the gate that appeared on the ground, vanishing. And I go and I grab the next module, and they give chase. And it was a wild year. We kept that up for a while. And eventually, they never did catch Bill Gates, but they did destroy enough of his plans that Bill Gates retired. So technically they did win. But Bob, at the end of it, when Bob decided that he was going to join the Navy and he was flying out to Hawaii, which I was super for. I'm like, you're going to love it in Hawaii, dude. It's awesome. He sat down with Craig and I, and we had a long talk, chilling, and told the story of this epic tale of Bill Gates and Bob the Brave in this continual epic struggle, and is like, hey, whenever you get the chance, cameos in your game. Just show they're still chasing each other. Bill Gates is still running. I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to retire. And Bob is still chasing him. I don't care. I'm going to kill you. That was quite the adventurous story. It was an enormous tale of madness, but I gotta say, I like to think that eventually Bob did get his revenge because he was a big damn hero. Thank you everybody who showed up to watch the absolutely insane story of what went down with Bob and Bill Gates. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I will see you in the next one. Good night all.